ask your staff to visualize and to think about images and words that come to mind when you think professional development. We might get a little bit of this. We might get
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics.
Anyways, a couple of colleagues shared some terminology for PD. Dump and run was one. Drive-by professional development, and one we like, spray and pray. Death by binder. And the thing about binders is every educator, we cannot deny, at least at one point in their career, maybe not anymore, has their own version of the binder trophy case. And what it shows is all the time that we spent covering material. And there's a cost to that. There's a cost to putting the material together, to train, to release teachers from their classroom. And then we send them back to school and say good luck with that, and then follow up to see how they're doing. We asked our teachers at the teacher leadership meetings to talk about what we'd like professional development to look like in the future. And this is a wordle of some of the statements that came out. Basically, what our teachers union, our teacher leadership, and even our principals wanted was some flexibility. A one-size-fits-all, we agree, is not good for kids, and it's not good for any type of learning activity if you want creative and collaboration and critical thinking. And so Tim Brown is someone that I think has a really good viewpoint on how to design new models and innovation.
Really what design thinking is all about is the simple conversion of need into demand, need into solution. Any of us who went to business school, actually I don't include me, I went to art school, but those people who went to business school were taught very many effective techniques for what I would call convergent thinking, which is taking the set of available choices, analyzing those choices, and making the best one that then gets implemented. And now that's great for taking an existing world and optimizing it. If, on the other hand, you're trying to create new innovations, there's another piece that you need to put in front of that. And that is the creation of those choices themselves. Because if you're just looking at the same set of choices that everybody else is looking at, you're likely to get to the same innovations that they are. But if, however, you can create new choices, choices that nobody else is looking at, that nobody else has seen, there's a pretty strong chance you can get to an innovation that nobody else has gotten to. So successful companies innovate across a portfolio. They do short-term incremental innovation, they do medium-term innovation, and they do kind of long-term, more breakthrough innovation. And one of the tricks is applying your resources, the people, the money that you have appropriately across that range.
Tim Brown's the CEO of IDEO. And so the innovation that we're looking for is how do we change the variable? And so right now, what's constant is time. We bring our staff together and we provide hours of training. And we sit through these workshops, we sit through these staff developments, and at the end of it, learning is a variable. or at least implementation is a variable. So we spend money to train everybody, and the return on investment is marginal depending on the quality of the PD and the desire and engagement of the folks that you're training. What we wanted to flip is to change the variable to time and make learning the constant. And that's where the concept of competency-based versus seat time professional development came. We also wanted to build in some of the principles that Daniel Pink brings us in his research from his book Drive.
Talk to me about the 3 parts of intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, if you look at the research, past a certain point, what really motivates people is the ability to direct their own lives, to have control over their time and over what they do. Mastery, there's just some research, Harvard Business Review just published research that showed that the biggest motivator at work is making progress. It isn't incentives, it's the feeling of making progress. And then finally, purpose. We want to do things that matter, that make a contribution, that are connected to some kind of broader purpose, something bigger than ourselves. We want to do interesting work, and we want to do it autonomously. And it's possible to sculpt jobs. Individuals can in some way shape their own work to be more autonomous. There's an interesting study that I write about of hospital janitors. Okay, that's not a job most of us would want. But there are hospital janitors who saw their job as simply coming in, sweeping the floor, and getting out. There were others who, because of some things in the environment and the way that the organization was structured, who had this even minimal ability to sculpt their job, so that they would go in when they cleaned a floor, talk to the patient. They would go in and maybe help a nurse every once in a while. Well, it turned out that those hospital janitors liked their jobs a heck of a lot more. They stuck around a lot longer. They moved up in the ranks of the organization. And so even, if we can take small steps to sculpt our jobs to make them a little bit more autonomous, to help us really make progress and get better at things, and to think about, okay, why am I here? We think about it at work. We spend, half of our waking hours at work. I mean, you want it to matter. You want it to be purposeful. And so look for some kind of purpose in your work as well.
Okay. Now, suppose I'm managing people.
Yeah.
Can you give me some tips on how to get them motivated?
Part of it is like if you're a manager, it's so interesting. We tend to have this in business, this notion, especially managers, that people, if they're left alone, they're basically lumps, and they would never do anything. So you got to have that stick waiting for them, or you got to have that carrot out in front of them. That's how people are. They're inert lumps. Now, what's curious is that no manager ever believes this about him or herself. Okay, they only believe it about other people. But if you say, well, maybe people are kind of like me. Maybe they actually want to do something that matters. Maybe they want to do good work. Then if you say, well, maybe I should get out of their way a little bit more, and the science shows that. Maybe I should recognize that making progress is really important in job satisfaction. So what I can do as a manager is help people make that progress, or recognize that progress when it's made. And maybe, I think most important for a manager, is maybe I can explain what we're doing and infuse it with some sense of purpose. If people are working their butts off, as many people are right now in this economy, long days and hard work and taking other kinds of assignments, a manager can come in and say, listen, here's what's going on. Here's how it contributes to what we're doing. Here's why what you're doing is important. And the interesting thing about that is all these mechanisms that I'm talking about they're free.
Ken Robinson also contributed to the ideas behind our design.
Now, the conceit of education is that children learn anyway. The conceit of education is that we can help them do it better and direct them to things they may not otherwise learn if left to their own devices. That's why we plan to do this sort of stuff. But learning will happen anyway, and with the new technologies happening more and more, actually, spontaneously. What it means is if we really want education to be effective, we have to focus on the process of teaching and learning. And teaching, I think, over the course of the past number of years, of these so-called reform movements, has become reduced in the political discourse to a kind of delivery system. Your job is to deliver the national curriculum. I don't know when we borrowed all this lexicon from FedEx. I don't know when that began to happen, that we dropped the curriculum off for you. But teaching has become seen as a kind of delivery system, and teachers have become seen as kind of functionaries in the raising of standards and the administration of tests. Actually, teaching is an art form. Everything I've ever learned and seen about teaching convinces me that is the case. It's not enough to be a good teacher to know your stuff, though you need to know it. You don't need to know everything, but you need to know enough to be able to teach it. But more than that, you need to be able to excite people about the material. You need to engage them. You need to pique their imaginations. You need to fuel their creativity. You need to drive their passion for it. You need to get them to want to learn this. You need to find points of entry. That's the gift of a great teacher. Somebody was saying to me earlier today, how can you do that with 35 kids in the class? I know teachers, and my wife Terry was among them when I first met her, with 42 kids in the class, and the place was humming and alive with activity and learning. And you do that not by you having to teach them everything, but by getting them actively involved in teaching themselves and teaching each other. In Harvard now, they talk a lot about the flipped classroom. The physics professors there who have stopped lecturing people, which is ironic for me to be reporting on now, I know that, but instead, he gets the students in groups to work together and teach each other. And I find it very interesting that finally, Harvard and our universities have discovered what every good primary school teacher has known for years, that people teach themselves if you create the right conditions for it.
I love that last part. And we apply that to our adult learners too, that if provided the right conditions, that we'll learn from each other and we'll create some of the work ourselves. And here's one last piece from Ken before we get into the model.
Investing in professional development is not a cost, it's an investment. And every other country that's succeeding well knows that, whether it's Australia, Canada, South Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, or Shanghai. They know that to be the case. And the third is, they devolve responsibility to the school level for getting the job done. You see, there's a big difference here between going into a mode of command and control in education. That's what happens in some systems. Central governments decide or state governments decide, they know best and they're going to tell you what to do. The trouble is that education doesn't go on in the committee rooms of our legislative buildings. It happens in classrooms and schools. And the people who do it are the teachers and the students. And if you remove their discretion, it stops working. You have to put it back to the people.
And that's the design. And so one of the more innovative approaches to recognizing learning and demonstrating progress is the advent of digital badges. And you see this a lot in gaming, in other industries, and it's starting to penetrate the education marketplace. And so what are digital badges?
What is a badge? A badge is an online representation of a skill or achievement you've earned. They've been used in gaming and online spaces to motivate behavior, recognize achievement, and establish credibility. What if we used badges for learning? Badges could be created and issued by anyone: schools, online spaces, cultural and civic institutions, community and professional organizations, to represent a limitless set of skills, achievements, and knowledge. Badges could be earned by anyone completing programs or projects or demonstrating specific knowledge, skills, and abilities. Badges could be shared on websites or blogs, social media profiles, online portfolios, and resumes, leading to real opportunities like connecting with potential collaborators, earning school credit, or getting a job. Mozilla's Open Badges infrastructure provides the software and open technical standard for everyone to earn, issue, and display badges across various contexts, ensuring that everyone gets recognition for the learning that happens anywhere and shares it in the places that matter. So what do badges mean for learning? Badges let us see that learning goes beyond classrooms. Skills like creativity and collaboration and passionate interests become as important as subjects like math and science. Badges show our learning as more than a collection of test scores and grades, but as learning pathways rich with detail and information.
To watch that full video, you can go to Mozilla's website. Here's President Clinton at a recent summit talking about the same.
Traditional assessment tools are narrow in scope and often aren't able to communicate everything a person knows or has achieved. In order to capture the many and often informal ways that students and workers acquire knowledge and skills, and to enable institutions to recognize their accomplishments, we must embrace a more modern and comprehensive credentialing system. So the MacArthur Foundation and its partners are committing to unlock new opportunities for educational and career advancements by expanding the ecosystem of organizations that issue and recognize so-called digital badges. A digital badge is a virtual emblem that represents specific knowledge or skills gained in both formal and informal settings. Over the next 3 years, this commitment will provide more than 40 large employers, professional societies, and educational institutions with the outreach and technical support needed to increase the number of organizations that issue and recognize digital badges. By helping individuals communicate a more detailed picture of their diverse abilities, and by making it easier for educational institutions and employers to identify qualified candidates, this commitment will create new paths to advancement for 1 million students and 1 million workers by 2016. Let's give them a big hand.
And so I can't take credit for the idea, but it's out there, and several districts and schools are already looking at implementation, and Purdue is one. But basically, what we just saw is that the learning happens in multiple situations. So teachers in our model can learn online collaboratively. They can learn online independently. They could learn after school. They could learn during the school day, after work. Flexibility over time and space. And then as teachers accomplish these different badges or skills, if you will, then they unlock new opportunities for them. And I think that benefits the professionals as well as personnel organizations to say, well, it's one thing to have it written on a resume, but an open badge actually demonstrates that the competency was done. It's almost like a mini degree. Here's Purdue University and a short clip of their model.
This is Passport. It's a new way to think about flexible learning. It's learning management mixed with gaming meets e-portfolio. Students earn badges by completing learning activities presented as a series of challenges. Passport guides students through each task by providing a framework to submit documents, share links, complete quizzes, or gather approvals. Instructors can follow each student's progress and connect badges with course objectives. As badges are collected, they can be shared online as a Mozilla Open badge or through the mobile portfolio. Take a challenge, show what you know. For more information, please visit purdue.edu/studio.